Marvel President Kevin Feige's plans for recasting almost all characters in the X-Men franchise might bring a problem for Magneto's timeline. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Unlike most of the characters, Magneto has a serious problem with the human race. His hatred stems from his troubled childhood since he was a Jew who was in a concentration camp during World War II. Marvel President Kevin Feige has made some big announcements and insights regarding the Marvel Cinematic Universe. From recasting almost all of the X-Men characters as younger versions to talking about Jonathan Majors' casting as Kong, Feige gave earnest answers. In an interview with Variety, the Marvel president talked about the future of the MCU and how they plan to introduce the X-Men to this already well-established universe. They have been a place to tell stories about young people who feel different and who feel other and who feel like they don't belong. He concluded, "That's the universal story of mutants, and that is where we're going." What Feige meant by those words is that almost all of the OG characters from the X-Men franchise will be recast and will portray younger versions compared to the OG movies. This brings us to a very crucial problem, one involving Ian McKellen's Magneto and his backstory. If Feige wishes to cast a young Magneto, they would have to set the entirety of the movie in an earlier timeline, which they did with movies like X-Men, Days of Future Past and X-Men, First Class. However, that certainly won't be an option since Feige wishes to bring them to the modern-day MCU, if he wants to crossover. Well, Feige's comments about a younger cast for the X-Men movies bring a challenge about Magneto's character. However, we may have a solution to this problem. Watching the brutality and the pain, Ian McKellen's Magneto developed a hatred for humans and what they were capable of. Since the Holocaust happened between 1933 to 1945, Magneto needs to be an old guy in modern times, given that he is allegedly immortal. We all have seen Captain America, the first Avenger, right? Steve Rogers went down under the ice and was kept alive by the frozen ice for several decades. When he emerged, Steve Rogers was still in his youth and still a super soldier. In the same interview with Variety, Feige stated that Avengers: Secret Wars will serve as a soft reboot within the MCU. Well, with that soft reboot and the reintroduction of the X-Men, Kevin Feige may have a chance to tweak the origin story of Magneto just a little bit to fit the narrative better. This could set up the storyline perfectly and manage the timeline without changing Magneto's hatred for humanity and backstory too much. Although Feige might have thought of other scenarios, we think that this could potentially be a way out of the timeline mess. What do you think about Kevin Feige's decision to recast almost every actor? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Well, Kevin Feige's MCU could potentially do something similar with Magneto by showing his backstory at the concentration camps first. With a child Magneto showcasing his powers accidentally, the Nazis can potentially put him in suspended animation till he finally manages to break out. Kevin Feige confirms Marvel will recast Iron Man and Captain America after Secret Wars, signaling a bold new chapter for the MCU. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Let's face it, replacing legends like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans undoubtedly feels wrong. After all, these two didn't just play Iron Man and Captain America, they became them. But Kevin Feige believes it's time for the MCU to turn a new page, and he's not afraid to recast the roles that helped build Marvel into the box office giant. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to change in a big, bold way. Kevin Feige, the mastermind behind the MCU, just confirmed what fans have been somewhat dreading for years. During a press conference via Variety, the Marvel boss mentioned that new actors will be cast to play Tony Stark and Steve Rogers after Avengers: Secret Wars. That's right, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans' era as the OG Iron Man and Captain America is coming to an end. But turns out, Kevin Feige isn't hitting the reboot button, unlike James Gunn's DC Studios. Because according to the Marvel head, Secret Wars will close the current chapter and start a new one, where new faces, new heroes, and the long-awaited arrival of the X-Men will happen. Comparing Marvel with DC Studios and the James Bond franchise, where producers are hunting for new faces to fill in the shoes of titular characters, Kevin Feige noted that it's time for them to pass the torch from stars like Downey Jr. and Evans to newer and more relatable ones. We're utilizing that story, not just to round out the stories we've been telling post-Endgame, just as importantly, and you can look at the Secret Wars comics for where that takes you. It very, very much sets us up for the future. Endgame, literally, was about endings. Secret Wars is about beginnings. Therefore, after Avengers: Secret Wars in 2027, Marvel will somewhat rebuild the multiverse with new actors, donning the same legacy characters. Additionally, following the events of Secret Wars, the company will recast the superpowered mutants for its upcoming X-Men movie with all new actors, and will be directed by Jake Schreier. During the presser, he made it clear that Marvel isn't doing anything new here. Just like James Bond has had many faces, from Sean Connery to Daniel Craig, and just like Superman is now being played by David Corenswet, Marvel too will pass its most powerful mantles to new actors. It's part of keeping the stories alive and relatable for new audiences. Honestly speaking, with a whole heart filled with nostalgia, replacing Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans feels scary. Because these two actors are literally the face of Marvel, and are often strongly associated with their on-screen characters, Iron Man and Captain America, by many fans. So it's almost hard to imagine any other actor replacing them in the MCU. But while Kevin Feige particularly mentioned Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans' character, because both of them have either died or retired, he also offered a tinge of hope for two legacy actors. Asked about his plans for a follow-up to 2024's Deadpool and Wolverine with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, Feige mentioned that there's still time for the duo. I think there is more fun to be had with both of those characters. But we'll see where. So, while we might get two new actors playing the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist and the righteous superhero, Deadpool and Wolverine actors are safe. Even though X-Men actors are set to be recast. So it seems that entertainment is much like nature, it must change and evolve to remain relatable and compatible with the new generation. So, as long as Marvel finds the right people for the job and tells strong stories, we believe the change won't bother fans much. Like, it may take time to let go of the legacy actors, but letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means growing. Let us know in the comments what you think of Kevin Feige's decision about replacing Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. That's why there might be a major risk in changing something fans deeply love. However, if we think logically, instead of emotionally, maybe it's the right time. The MCU has been growing for more than a decade. Some fans are getting older, and new ones are just joining in. Marvel needs to evolve with its audience. And new actors could bring that fresh vibe to these legendary characters, while still honoring the past. Yes, they might initially struggle to fill the massive shoes of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, but sometimes change is necessary even if it's challenging. Because that's what has been going on for generations. From Peter Parker being changed thrice, to Batman being played by 9 different actors on the silver screen, even Harry Potter is now being recast for HBO. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige acknowledges the misdirections of the MCU and is coming up with drastic plans to change it. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. As it stands now, the MCU is in its biggest slump period, which has lasted for several years at this point. Thus, changes need to be made as the franchise heads to its next phase. Thankfully, Kevin Feige has planned out what steps need to be taken to ensure they can make the franchise better. After yet another letdown in the form of MCU's Thunderbolts*, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige addressed one of the main causes of the issue. In a recent interview with Variety, Feige had this to say about it. Thunderbolts*, I thought was a very good movie, but nobody knew that title and many of those characters were from a TV show. Some audiences were still feeling